Good evening and welcome to Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. I am Star Smart. Let's begin. In February, the Amazonian Restoration Forces called for 2 days lockdown on the 10th and 11th February to boycott the so-called La République du Cameroon's National Youth Day celebrations across Ambazonia. They also announced the shutdown of schools from 7th to 11th of February. To reinforce this call on 7th and 8th, the Amazonian Restoration Forces invaded and forcibly shut down two schools that had opened in Atwakom, Bamenda local government area, and Nkamlikum Kumba local government area. During this period, about 8 attacks on education were reported, 7 in the northern zone and 1 in the southern zone. The Amazonian Restoration Forces have been doing all in their power to keep the Amazonian territory off limits for the occupational forces who come in to wreak havoc on the people of Amazonia. Well, while the firepower on the home front is not dying, the Amazonian interim government presses for redress of referendum on sovereignty as President Samuel Ikome Sako seeks redress of Amazonian welfare in a press release. With all efforts on the home front and from the diaspora put into this much action, one can tell the never again generation will not back down until recognition of Amazonian statehood is given. We have the full briefings of tonight's Undaunted coming right up after the prime headlines.
All right, these are the prime headlines for today. Dr. Samuel Ikome seeks redress of Amazonian welfare in a press release. An Amazonian got drowned in the Wari River in Douala. Francophones continue xenophobic tendencies and elimination of Southern Cameroons. Capo Daniels, the anti-Amazonian, acknowledges journalist Ayenso was killed by his group of assassins. Tonight, Southern Cameroon Situation Report for April 2023 will be highlighted for you. A man burned to death for attempting to rob bank in Boya local government area. And in sports, Sheikh Jassim still keen to buy United even if they fail to qualify for the UCL. Now let's get the news in detail.
Payment method: www.abcambertv.com/donate. ABC Amber TV payment channels: Cash App 202-650-2216, Zelle 240-486-8768, Amazonia Broadcasting Corporation. PayPal payment.
The media greatly influences society. They inform people about what is happening. It permeates people's lives by creating their own criteria and opinions. In this way, the media moves the masses, creating different social movements.
For over 60 years, the people of Ambazonia were deprived of such privileges. The privilege to enhance their own criteria and opinion. They have suffered cultural genocide for 6 long decades, but not in this age and not with Undaunted ABC Amber News on board.
You must understand that wars are fought and won in the media. The speed of the revolution on Ambazonia's quest for freedom cannot be explained without highlighting the diligent use of the media.
Franco-Cameroon colonizers, among other strategic moves, weaponized the media against Ambazonia for so long and they continue to do so even today. The question would be, how much do the oppressed people of Ambazonia need to counter the media rage?
Indeed. How much more is required to stop the genocide? The carnage in Amazonia didn't start today. In 1961, 1972, 1984, 1992, Ambazonians were slaughtered in huge numbers and help was not forthcoming. Why? Because the oppressor was the piper in the media.
The good news is we have what it takes to dictate the pace.
Right now, ABC Amba TV is taking advantage of the wonders of multimedia aggressively
to inform the misinformed and disinformed with Undaunted and other revolutionary programs bringing into the news untold stories.
Most importantly, to win the media war by taking ABC Amba TV into every multimedia platform.
In a word, where the importance of storytelling can never be overemphasized, Ambazonians has to tell her own story, not the other way round.
And like we say it always, Amazonia must narrate her story accurately. We can do this together, you know, right? You are just a click away. Visit our website at www.abcambertv.com, and the steps are quite simple.
With just a click on the website, you can become a club member with so many benefits.
You can also make a one-time donation, advertise and showcase your goods and services at the marketplace on the website.
That was easy, right? You're welcome on board.
And thank you for opting for the winning team.
We the people, ABC Amba TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa. With untold stories, Africa's best.
Succeeding as an Ambazonian is a threat to the very existence of greedy and self-centered Cameroonians. The growing range within Cameroonians seeing the people of Ambazonia making it in business and other fields is now first manifesting. The Ambazonian community in La Republique du Cameroon, eco-dweller, are in shock and finding it difficult to accept the fact that their language brothers is more. Visha Roland Keats was discovered lifeless in the waters of the Wari River, a death that remains a mystery to all. Is this not another La Republique du Cameroon and Ambazonians called settling? What caused his body to leave the road into the waters? Oh, well, while we're trying to answer those questions, we will begin the full briefings of Undaunted here. How are you doing, sir?
Very well, Onyi. Good evening, Ambazonians. Well, in the full report, the Anglophone Ambazonian community in Douala is in shock by the mysterious death of one of them, Visha Roland Keats. The lifeless body of Visha Roland Keats was picked out of the Wari River in the colonial economic capital of La Republique du Cameroon, that is Douala. He was a successful car parts dealer at the Camp Yabasi locality in Douala. Investigations have been opened by security forces to determine why and exactly how Mfomi Visha Roland Keats found himself in the Wari River in Douala.
His remains were found this May night. The native, who was a car part seller at Camp Yabasi Douala, has been described by many as a hard-working and fun-loving person. Autopsy results are awaited to ascertain the cause of his death. Undaunted is on it and will update the audience on the recent developments.
And now on to another interesting report. A man from Lasin, Noni local government area, Boyi County, has just been beaten to death for urinating on somebody's land in Yaoundé. Another from Nkambe local government area, Donga Matun County, was killed in Douala for urinating on a francophone man's wall. Many Amazonians, mostly motorcycle riders, are killed on a daily basis. Meantime, hate speech has moved from enemies dans la maison Biafrais, les homes argue, to something worse, a people with a stench. This sad news reaching Undaunted has confirmed that one Mr. Sylvester Banfila has been beaten to death in Nkomesing.
Well, Nkomesing is a Yaoundé neighborhood in the colonial capital. He was killed simply for urinating by a roadside on someone's land on his way to a meeting dressed in the traditional regalia called Togo. Mr. Banfila reportedly died of internal bleeding on Sunday, 7th of May, 2023. In a health facility in Yaoundé, he leaves behind his wife and 2 children. In the persistence of the barbaric francophone xenophobic tendency, one Sebastian Ebali, a fellow jailed in Kondengi for 2 years and released about 6 months ago, has joined the likes of Emma Bassel, former government delegate to the Yaoundé Colonial Center Council, who in the 1990s described all Ambazonians as les ennemis dans la mission. And of recent, the Colonial La République du Cameroon governor, Okalia Bilai, describing Ambazonians as dogs, cats, rats, and even cockroaches, to add that Ambazonian women are a stench. Well, very repugnant, and we should leave it at that first.
Well, some Amazonians are saying Ebale should have a mental problem, but ABC Amba TV sees such outings as deliberate because after such an audio that went viral, he was summoned to the Colonial National Gendarmerie, abbreviated SED. But in a few days, he will be released and he will look for something else to create another buzz. One Ernest Obama, a journalist with Vision for TV, whose proprietor, that is Amugo Belinga, is now a high-profile prisoner at the Yaoundé famous Kondegi prison. He, in 2017, in a talk show, said publicly and openly that Anglophones were causing disorder and proposed deretization, that Amazonians should be eliminated as rats. Of course, nothing had been done to him since then. Same with Okalia Belai.
Ambazonians are warned to be careful not only in Yaoundé. 2 things are in play: how to replace beer with another beer, and secondly, a good number of Betty Bulu people have this moribund feeling that Ambazonia is now an unbelievable reality, and more so, many of their children have been killed in the ongoing Ambazonian War of Independence. So anything Bamenda or Anglophone is detested. These killings are a targeted revenge. Also, there is anger and frustration that Sonora CDC timber will soon be gone. Their free estates will soon be a thing of the past. All these realities and many more provoke their bitterness, and the weapons being employed are outright elimination and provocative hate speeches.
Meanwhile, it is not news to Amazonia, to ABC Amba TV, that the former spokesperson for the Amazonian Defense Forces, ADF, an anti-Amazonian killer squad, Emmanuel Ndong, popularly known as Capo Daniel, has confirmed that Bamenda-based journalist Anye Ndenso was shot and killed by his hit squad, even though he tries to cover up that it was a case of mistaken identity. In a televised address on Monday, he claimed pretentiously that his hit squad is regretting that action, for they had been targeting a La République du Cameroon colonial military commander who regularly visited the bar in which Anye was shot.
Now, well, you would agree, this is not true, since Aye, as an animator at Don Simon's snack bar with a microphone, could not be mistaken for a military who should not animate. Aye died on the spot after being shot in the chest at Don Simon's snack bar on Sunday, May 7, where he is an animator. A witness said he bumped into 2 fighters loyal to Capo Daniels, who had come into the bar earlier and ordered everyone out. They shot him at first sight, and he died before he could be rushed to the hospital.
Well, journalists and journalism associations have been mourning and condemning this killing, many describing him as a gentleman and a promising journalist. Aside from writing for a sports website, Anye was working for Dream FM in Bamenda and correspondent for the Advocate newspaper. The Colonial Republic du Cameroon senior divisional officer for Mezam, Simon Emile Mo, promised his Yaoundé genocidal government that he will fetch his killers and bring them to justice.
Well, Anye is a of Ambazonians who have been targeted or mistakenly killed in the ongoing armed conflict by the Colonial Republic du Cameroon barbaric genocidal military aided by the ADF. Capo Daniel said they have instructed their fighters who have been targeting mostly valiant ARFs for elimination not to target journalists, and that they will ensure no one is mistakenly targeted again. Amid the promises, the only certainty is that Aye is gone, and the so-called regrets of the couple Daniel and his team are doing nothing to numb the pains of the family and the media community.
Over 40,000 people have been killed in the fighting between the Amazonian Restoration Forces and the Colonial La Republic du Cameroon government troops, with atrocities committed on both sides. Earlier this year, a radio presenter and a journalist were killed in two separate attacks in the Colonial La Republic capital, Yaoundé, prompting the United Nations to express concern about the gloomy media environment in La Republic du Cameroon.
ABC Amba TV sources have disclosed that Ayen Denzo was once arrested by the Colonial La Republic du Cameroon military in the same spot, Don Simon snack bar, and was taken to Bamenda military camp, detained before being released when he said occupier military heard he was a journalist. Today, in the same spot where he animates Capo Daniel's hit squad, plucked off his life. Well, what do we have to say? May he rest in peace.
Well, while all these atrocities are carried out, the interim government has not relented. In a press release issued after a conference with media men, the president of Amazonia, the former British Southern Cameroons, Dr. Samuel Ikome Sako, said that its citizens have remained the victims as La Republic du Cameroon forces of occupation have continued indiscriminate arrest, killings, torture of civilians, and recent burning down of villages, adding that impunity remains the order of the day, encouraging the abusers, fueling further violence and harm, and prolonged the conflict.
There are a lot of diverse voices on a way out of the present quagmire in southern Cameroon's Ambazonia, since the Colonial La Republic du Cameroon government has boycotted and shied away from any move to ending the war. It is high time the people of Ambazonia decide on their future. These can only be through a referendum. Well, a referendum is the object of President Dr. Samuel Ikome of the interim government's press release. Others have for long decided on the fate of the people of southern Cameroon, Ambazonia, and it is high time they take their destiny into their own hands.
Well, courtesy of an article by The Sun, the Republic of Ambazonia has sought the redress of a referendum on its sovereignty and for the welfare of its citizens. Sako stated the Human Rights Watch reports, UNHCR, and other NGOs have consciously reported with great underestimation of the overall collateral damage, where more than 45,000 people have been killed, to say the least, more than 2 million displaced, saying even as we speak, some have recently died in the oceans of Antigua while trying to escape from the war. And he says we wonder why the media mostly reports without seriousness.
According to the president, in his words, he said, when we peacefully requested reforms, primarily in the education and judicial sector, the colonial government's response was brutal. Several protesters were arrested and detained. By early 2017, the peaceful agitators had morphed into an armed conflict, an existential conflict for us, given that we must ensure our existence within the community of nations of the world. The Republic of Cameroon's President Paul Biya has labeled us, in quote, terrorists, and has been disinclined to any form of honest and or inclusive mechanism to end the war. According to him, awarding us a special status would be a way out of the carnage.
Well, in the president's address about the Amazonian interim government position on the referendum, he said that the Republic of Cameroon boycotted the Swiss-led mediation after pretending to be a party for over 2 years, noting that most recently they received some individuals within our community and the Canadian government on pre-talks only to turn around and deny their participation in the talks. Well, he explained that unfortunately, this onslaught of genocidal proportion somehow remains one of the highly underreported wars in recent times. As for the reasons for this silence, he says your guess is as good as mine. He also stated that the French Cameroon's rhetoric, which has engulfed mainstream media, has been very unfair, stating that the gimmick is to misinform, disinform, and manipulate. Quoting the president, one of such that we have identified is the question of a referendum proposed as a way to end the conflict, and that will be our main focus for today as the interim government's position on the issue of a referendum.
Well, in his words, he says there are divergent views and proposals among stakeholders, both internally and externally, on how to resolve the ongoing conflict in southern Cameroon's Ambazonia. That has resulted in an unprecedented 21st century genocidal perpetrated by the Paul Biya regime of the Republic of Cameroon, also known as La République du Cameroun. Among these divergent views is a proposal for a referendum to be held in the territory of southern Cameroon's Ambazonia, which is former UN trust territory under the UK, to determine the future of southern Cameroon's Ambazonia. Cognizant of the UNGA Resolution 1608 of the 21st April 1961, granting independence to the UN Trust territory of Southern Cameroon and the subsequent non-execution of all the processes of decolonization prescribed therein. The interim government, representing the aspirations of an overwhelming majority of Amazonians, has been clear and consistent in articulating the basis of the root cause of the Southern Cameroon's problem, which is the non-execution in its entirety of the above-mentioned UN resolution, that is, paving the way for the annexation and recolonization of southern Cameroon by La République du Cameroun in 1961.
Well, quoting him, therefore, complete decolonization is what we seek. And this involves complete restoration, absolute sovereignty, and recognition of southern Cameroon's Ambazonia as the 55th state of Africa. The president went on that we believe a plebiscite, a non-binding survey of our opinions by the UN, is an acceptable democratic process to ascertain the majority view of Southern Cameroonians, Ambazonians, since the last plebiscite of 1961, if there is any doubt about the majority position. And we object to any proposed referendum on grounds that it presupposes falsely that Southern Cameroon is part of the Republic of Cameroon, La République du Cameroun, and is seeking to it as an independent country. We were granted independence in 1961. It was only the joining that did not take place legally, and the Republic of Cameroon withdrew from the Union project in 1984 when they reverted to their original name before 1961, President explained.
Well, the former British Southern Cameroon leader further noted, we have never been part of the Republic of Cameroon, so we do not need a referendum to decide if we can separate from a non-existent union. Also, a binding referendum will exclude the genuine dialogue. We need to address the root causes of the conflict because it is based on winner takes all. He goes on to say, we are not fighting to change the form of government in the Republic of Cameroon. We are not also fighting for constitutional changes within the Republic of Cameroon, that's the French Cameroon. We are fighting against annexation. We are defending our restored independence. Annexation cannot be resolved through a referendum because it is either a right or a wrong issue. Just as the solution of rape is not marriage, we do not need a referendum to tell right from wrong. We need the international justice system, or better still, a negotiated settlement. You are aware that after World War One, British Southern Cameroons as well as French Cameroons became a League of Nations mandate from 1922 to 1945. They both became mandated territories.
Well, still speaking on the historicity of Amazonia, the president went further to explain that after 1945, both mandated territories became trusteeship territories under the UN, as stipulated in Chapter 12 and 13 of the United Nations Charter. The trusteeship system dealt with the supervision of known self-governing states designated as trust territories and what we were a trust territory. Now, the basic objective of the ITS, that is the International Trusteeship System, as declared by Article 76 of the UN Charter, was the promotion of the political, economic, social, and educational advancement of inhabitants of trust territories and progressive development towards self-government. The trusteeship agreement, which brought British Cameroons under the ITS, was approved on 13th December 1946. The president noted that the UN, after having recognized Southern Cameroon's sovereignty, did not give a referendum. Rather, they gave the peoples of Southern Cameroon a plebiscite.
He further explained, a plebiscite is a consultation of opinion. It wasn't a referendum, it wasn't law. If the UN thought we were not autonomous, but just a tiny part of La République du Cameroun, they would have given us a referendum. During the plebiscite, given the limited choice available, British Southern Cameroons entered into a trial relationship of a federation of two sovereign states of equal status because French Cameroon got its independence on 1st January 1960, while British Southern Cameroon got her independence on 1st October 1961. A plebiscite presupposes that we are two different people seeking to establish our sovereignty. Note that Article 47 of the Federal Constitution between these two states of equal status provided that the federal form of the states should never be altered or alterated or even changed. And that is exactly where the problem is. In 1972, French Cameroon unilaterally organized a referendum with one ballot option. Yes, which means the same thing. Not only was it a one ballot option, but French Cameroon was also invited to participate. This explains why we say that the entire process was fraudulent and even flawed.
Well, according to the president, if the United Nations wants to serve the majority opinion on this issue, they should conduct another non-binding plebiscite in the Southern Cameroons, not a referendum, as this is the threshold position of the people that we represent, the president says. Therefore, any views or proposals that seek to mask the status quo of Cameroon, the Southern Cameroon's colonial status, under the Republic of Cameroon are far-reaching and do not represent the aspirations of the overwhelming majority of Ambazonians as far as this liberation struggle is concerned, the president stated.
Well, furthermore, he said that the reasonable immediate way forward to end this conflict, supported by the international community, external stakeholders, is a genuine, all-inclusive dialogue, mediated negotiation process. The interim government under my leadership has advocated for this process, which was spearheaded by the Swiss, but the Republic of Cameroon failed to commit, saying that to concretely resolve these conflicts and subsequently resolve the issue of the sovereignty of Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia once and for all, another plebiscite, preceded by internationally mediated negotiation, should be the right step forward. Right, and this is a breaking news. Well, the Bui Warriors, the ARF's elite squad from Oko local government area inflicted high casualties on La Republic to Cameroon terrorist soldiers stationed at the colonial prison, and they called for helicopters backup for evacuation. Well, from the Bui security team, they say that they want to remind La Republic de Cameroon terrorist soldiers that our territory will remain ungovernable till the stolen statehood is finally restored. No to the colonial activities in southern Cameroon's territory.
They also send their thanks to their brave warriors for the work well done and calling on all genuine Southern Cameroonians, especially from Bui County, to support the Amazonian Restoration Forces financially until Amazonia gets to Boya. Now, only restoration of Southern Cameroon's stolen statehood will pave the way out of this terrible war period.
Look am, me as una look am, na the helicopter dey so for my place. Na in dey so. Na in dey so one land. Una tell una ice am. Na die body dem see well, I wan take am. Una see am? Na helicopter dey so one land, na in dey the land. They will take the die body dem. Oh, una mama pima. Na live video, no be say we be display. Shake, you know, dey. Una land. Na you that dey go down for prison. For prison, so the land of a prison. But take die body dem. Shake, you know, dey. Una land. Una land, na dem dey so. I wan tell una say, shake, no dey open about side. You know dey. Una land. Una land. Correct, confirm. Una dey go down. Voila. Confirm. Na so. It's not easy. Oh. Yes, shake, you know dey, shake, you know dey. I don't tell una say. Yes. Shake. Yeah, see how they bring them. Now the diabolic, see how they bring them. Oh, I'm not bring them. Now see how the diabolic, now they carry them, bring them. Now see how. Oh. See how they carry them. Now then this so live. Now look, I'm fine. Voila, here gone. Yes. Correct. Correct. Shake, you know there. When I go put up for helicopter, when I'm mommy pima. You are not land on no return, eh? You are not land.
Well, there you have the Amazonian Restoration Forces of Bui County. Well, let's take a look at some highlights from this year from the Amazonian Restoration Forces. The Southern Cameroon's Amazonia Situation Report 1 to 28 days in February 2023. 8 attacks by colonial La Republic du Cameroon genocide forces on education reported across Ambazonia. 2 attacks by the Yaoundé occupier forces on healthcare reported in the northern zone, and around 113 children identified with severe acute malnutrition could not receive treatment yet due to lack of supply of ready-to-use therapeutic food. Humanitarian activities temporarily suspended in Momo County.
Well, also, this is situation overview humanitarian access. Now, in February, the Amazonian Restoration Forces called for 2 days lockdown on the 10th and 11th February to boycott their so-called La Republique du Cameroon's National Youth Day celebrations, which was across Amberland. They also announced the shutdown of schools from 7th to 11th February. To reinforce this call, on the 7th and 8th February, the ARFs invaded and forcibly shut down 2 schools that had opened in Atuakun, Bamenda local government area, and Nkamlikum, Kumba local government area. During this period, about 8 attacks on education were reported, 7 in the northern zone and 1 in the southern zone. Well, this resulted in the closure of several schools. On the 15th of February, the ARFs killed a primary school teacher in his house in Jam village. Well, this is not the ARFs, but they are saying it's the ARFs. Now, he was accused of taking part in Youth Day commemorative activities. On the 10th of February, the La Republique de Cameroon B soldiers, together with the ADF, attacked a vehicle transporting workers of the Cameroon Development Corporation CDC who were returning to Tico from the Moderni banana plantation.
5 workers were killed, while 45 others were injured and hospitalized at the Tico Cottage Hospital, where they received treatment. One of the injured reportedly died later from his injuries. On 13 to 19 February, the Amazonian Restoration Forces announced another 2-day lockdown on 24th and 25th February in the Faco County to disrupt the Mount Faco race, an international athletic competition organized by the Colonia government in Yaoundé. On 25th April, the day of the race, several improvised explosive devices detonated along the racetrack, leaving over 19 persons injured, including 3 children and 2 women spectators. About 20 IED internally, the improvised explosive devices incidents were reported in February in the war-torn Amazonia, with most of them registered in the northern zone. The population continues to be targeted directly and indirectly by parties to the conflict.
All right, and that's all we have for this report. We'll be right back after the break.
Payment method: www.abcambertv.com/donate. ABC Amber TV payment channels: Cash App 202-650-2216, Zelle 240-486-8768, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. PayPal payments at abcambertv.com. Contact us today. info@abcambertv.com. Facebook ABC Ambazonia.
All right, you're welcome back. Now, in La Republic de Cameroon, where justice is a scarce commodity and delayed to come by, mob justice is taking center stage, and it is alarming how quickly people are willing to take matters in their own hands. It was a horrific scenario in Moiko Boyu, La Republic de Cameroon, after a man was set ablaze in mob justice for attempting to rob a bank. The yet to be identified man is a member of a gang which burgled a Boya-based bank on Wednesday, May 3rd, 2023. It is reported that the thieves made a hole in a building through which they planned to access Express Exchange, which is closer to their NFC bank. Their plans were, however, quashed after one of them was caught trying to access the financial institution via the hole they had dug.
Well, without hesitation, the angry mob tortured the man before setting him up in flames. This comes a few days after another man was burned to ashes in the Quarry Town, Boya local government area, still for robbing a beer depot. Reports reaching Undaunted say the streets of Moiko, Boya, Faco County were filled with chaos and horror after a man was set ablaze by an angry mob for attempting to rob a bank. The reports reveal that the thieves made a hole in the building with the intention of accessing Express Exchange, which is located closer to the NFC bank.
Unfortunately for them, one of the robbers went ahead and was caught trying to gain access through the hole they had dug. Horrified bystanders watched as the mob took the law into their own hands and began torturing the thief before dousing him in gasoline and setting him ablaze. A source told the local media says this came as a shock to many, says they only see that in movies. This is not an isolated event, as it occurred a few days after another man was burned to ashes in Bakweri town, Boya, for robbing a beer depot.
In Africa, well, the war in Sudan isn't anywhere close to coming to an end. But while that is still going on, the World Bank has taken its time to talk about the potential it sees in sub Saharan Africa. The World Bank has disclosed that in a time of energy transition and rising demand for metals and minerals, resource rich governments in sub Saharan Africa have an opportunity to better leverage their resources to finance their public programs, diversify their economy, and expand energy access.
Well, this is contained in Africa's Resource Future, a World Bank report launched on Wednesday, which finds that an average community or countries capture only about 40% of the revenue they could potentially collect from natural resources. In other words, at a time when countries are burdened by slow growth and high debt, governments could more than double revenues from natural resources such as minerals, oils, and gas by adopting a better set of policies, implementing reforms, and investing in better fiscal administration and promoting good governance, the World Bank had said. It added that full taxation of natural resources is also important to charge the full cost of on or environmental and social impacts, not only fully covered by producers, including petroleum resources, warning that failing to do so can act as an implicit production subsidy and raise carbon emissions.
James Cost, senior economist in the World Bank Africa region and co-editor of the report, said maximizing government revenues in the form of royalties and taxes paid by private natural resource industries alongside attracting new investment would offer a double dividend for people and the planet by increasing fiscal space and removing implicit production subsidies. The bank noted that the prospect of higher revenues is particularly welcome in countries that able to make badly needed development investments because of high borrowing and debt service cost. The bank pointed out that the global transition away from fossil fuel is creating unprecedented demand for a host of minerals and metals such as cobalt, lithium, copper, nickel, and rare earth elements, the REEs, that are required to develop green technologies such as wind turbines, solar panels, and batteries. It stressed that many of these resources are found in abundance across Africa. However, experience shows that natural resource wealth does not automatically translate into inclusive growth and prosperity, the World Bank further stated.
Well, the report states minerals, oils, and gas account for a third or more of exports from most countries in sub Saharan Africa. But countries have struggled to convert this wealth into sustainable growth in the past. Regional dependence on global commodity prices has led to suboptimal management of public resources when prices are high, an economic bust, and fiscal crisis when prices crash. Overall, resource-rich countries have been less resilient to economic shock than non-resource-rich countries, a reminder of the risks of a resource cost. Slower growth among some resource-rich countries has also been associated with lagging progress on poverty reduction.
Africa's Resource Future provides policymakers with practical recommendations for turning a resource curse into a resource opportunity. It cautions, besides capturing the full value of resource rent while continuing to attract private sector investment, governments should prepare for the next boom and bust cycle by investing resource rent into productive capital, by investing in people's health and education and infrastructure that can support more diverse and resilient economies. Amid other recommendations, the report also highlights opportunities tied to the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement that calls for phasing out 90% of tariffs over the next 5 to 10 years, promoting regional integration and harmonizing mining taxes and royalties across the region would also help.
Well, Albert Zufak, World Bank Country Director for Angola, Burundi, Democratic Republic of Congo, and Sao Tome and Principe, and co-editor of the report, said a regional approach to the extractives sector would allow the creation of value chains that add more value and create more jobs for people living in resource-rich countries than extraction alone. In this regard, the African Continental Free Trade Area and greater regional trade and economic integration offer an unprecedented opportunity for developing the mine to market value chain within the continent as resource driven development becomes more feasible with greater access to larger markets and the ability to pool resources, skills, and comparative advantages.
Well, according to the World Bank, a just transition for Africa and the world will depend on successfully and equitably harnessing the economic benefits of natural resources in the region. It added that good governance and sound macro fiscal management of resource revenues, while also preparing for a low carbon future, lies at the heart of this transition and must play a central role in economic transformation for Africa's future. Interesting fact there. It's unfortunate, though, that instead of having the sub Saharan region tap into this strategic opportunity, it's having more wars erupt from every corner. We can only hope we get to a more peaceful state to the point where these opportunities are maximized to the fullest.
All right, so away from Russia and Ukraine war, let's see more updates on the BRICS summit. The BRICS summit is about 2 months away, yet it has created more controversial atmosphere than any other summit. The world is ruled by money, finance. Little wonder why this currency issue has hit the globe. But there seems to be hope, especially for those who bank in dollars. A dollar financial expert has given reasons why the BRICS currency cannot be a match for the US dollars. Can dollar investors bank on his opinion? Well, we'll find out.
Well, dollar personal finance expert and best-selling author Dave Ramsey has dismissed the dollarization concerns and the prospect of a BRICS currency, the Chinese yuan or the Russian ruble, displacing the US dollar in international trade. He says they don't have the muscle to take down the dollar. Who is Ramsey, first of all? You might want to know he is an 8-time national best-selling author who sold more than 11 million copies, a self-proclaimed personal money management expert. He calls himself America's voice on money. Ramsey said China, Russia, and Brazil are the three main players in this.
Well, Ramsey, who says he is America's trusted voice on money, said he has been doing lots and lots of reading. In his words, he says, I'm reading more and more about de-dollarization US dollars as their basis of international trade. He said it will not affect the strength of the dollar, and should it not affect, he said he is concerned about how his savings and investing has been so far. Ramsey explained that China, Russia, and Brazil are the three main players in this summit. In his words, he stressed, and I quote, they already don't use the US dollar as their basis for international trade, emphasizing that all three countries have their own currencies and there is a conversion rate between each of those currencies, and the US dollar is that conversion.
While the self-proclaimed personal finance guru opined, the three largest countries are talking about bringing in some of the oil countries in the Middle East. They're trying to come up with one currency that they all use. The BRICS nation Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa are working to create a common currency that will reduce their reliance on the US dollar. Ramsey noted that the new common currency they come up with would be used for international trade and converted back and forth to dollars, much like Europe did with the euro, which, by the way, kind of did not work, he said. These countries, if they did all agree to use one currency, it would be much like when Europe went to the euro and then that's going to exchange for the dollar back and forth, in his words.
Well, he continued by saying all those countries are going to be able to devalue the dollar by doing that. No, they because while they do take up a lot of landmarks, they do not take up a lot of gross domestic product, the GDP of the world. He explained again by saying the United States still is the vast majority of the gross domestic product of the world. China is big. Russia is basically, well, in his word, he says Russia is basically horrible, and Brazil is in a failed economy, like 10 times. And it's tiny as far as economics go. He continued and emphasized that when you put them all together, they don't have the muscle to take down the dollar. They just don't mathematically or even through arithmetic. They just don't have it.
Well, Ramsey further explained that what they are going to do if they all do put it together, it's not a de-dollarization, it's not doing away with the dollar. They've created their own currency. They're still going to have to trade with the 800-pound gorilla, which would be us, he says, and you're going to have to trade with us in dollars. So whatever little currency you create over there in your little fantasy world that you live in, you're still going to have to trade it for dollars. So it's not going to take down the dollars, he said.
Well, this can be a source of hope to all those investing in dollar, but then we are also talking about 24 countries, including the oil producing ones as well. With all of these controversies, we can't wait to see the outcome of the summit in August. But then let's take a video of what Ramsey has said as well.
China and Brazil and Russia are the three main players in this. They already don't use the US dollar as their basis of international trade. Russia has its own currency, so does China, and so does Brazil. And there's a conversion rate between that currency and the US dollar. So many dollars equals so many yen. Okay? And, when you go to Mexico, a whole bunch of pesos equals a dollar, right? Like 20 of them. So that's, you got a conversion rate from one currency to another. What these particular the three largest countries, and they're talking about bringing in some of the oil countries as well in the Middle East, are doing is they're trying to come up with one currency that they all use, and then that would be in international trade converted back and forth to dollars, much like Europe did with the euro, which, by the way, kind of didn't work. While they do take up a lot of land mass, they do not take up a lot of the gross domestic product of the world. The United States still is the vast majority of the gross domestic product of the world. Still, China is big. Russia is basically horrible. And Brazil is a failed economy like times 10 and is tiny as far as economics go. In other words, like I suspect, I haven't looked it up, but I suspect Texas has a higher GDP than Brazil, as an example. For real. I'm not kidding. I haven't looked it up, but I bet you that's true. Look it up. I know it's got a higher GDP than Egypt because I looked that up one time. I know it's got a higher GDP than Sweden and about 5 of the other countries that were talking about natural gas crap a few years ago, because I looked that one up, and that was going to be the end of the world, and they were going to take over. But they're tiny but little countries. And so when you put them all together, they don't have the muscle to take down the dollar. They just don't. Mathematically. It's arithmetic, you can't, they just don't have it. Now, what they are going to do, if they all do put it together, it's not a de-dollarization. It's not doing away with the dollar. They've created their own currency. They're still going to have to trade with the 800-pound gorilla, which be us. Okay. And you're going to have to trade with us in dollars. So you're going to, whatever little currency you create over there in your little fantasy world that you live in, you're still going to have to trade it for dollars.
All right, and in sports, Italian journalist Fabrizio Romano has claimed Sheikh Jassim is still keen to buy the club even if United fails to qualify for the Champions League. A tugged run of form now sees United in fourth position in the Premier League, just a point ahead of rivals Liverpool, albeit with a game in hand.
Well, in basketball, Stephen Curry led with 27 points as the Golden State Warriors kept their hopes of reaching the Western Conference Finals alive with victory over the Los Angeles Lakers in San Francisco. The defending NBA champions won 121 to 106 to narrow their deficit in the best-of-7 semifinals to 3-2. Gabellison has more.
Latest world sports. Football. Romano. Sheikh Jassim still keen to buy United, even if they fail to qualify for UCL. Italian journalist Fabrizio Romano has claimed Sheikh Jassim is still keen to buy the club even if United fail to qualify for Champions League. A turgid run of form now sees United in fourth position in the Premier League, just a point ahead of rivals Liverpool, albeit with a game in hand. Yet Romano told his YouTube channel many Manchester United fans worried after the West Ham game have asked me what's going to happen with Sheikh Jassim and Ineos Group if Manchester United do not qualify for the next Champions League. First of all, Man United remain convinced they will make it. They remain very confident of claiming a Champions League spot at the moment. But what is coming from Sheikh Jassim's group is that they are prepared to insist on buying Manchester United in any case. It doesn't depend on Champions League football next season. So they want Manchester United, and they still feel confident. But for this sale process, it's up to the Glazers. But both Ineos and Qatari bid remain interested. They are waiting on the Glazers' decision on the preferred bid. Romano added, "This is a crucial moment. They have to decide as soon as possible to help the club for the summer transfer window." Tennis. Madrid Open organizers apologize for not allowing women's doubles finalists to make speeches. Madrid Open organizers have apologized to players and fans for the unacceptable decision to not allow the women's doubles finalists to make presentation speeches. Victoria Azarenka and Beatriz Haddad beat American Jessica Pegula and Coco Gauff 6-1, 6-4 on Sunday. All finalists in the singles and the men's doubles addressed the crowd after their matches. Organizers say they have apologized directly to the four players involved. Tournament Chief Executive Gerard Sobanian said, "We sincerely apologize to all the players and fans who expect more of the Mucho Madrid Open Tournament. Not giving our women's doubles finalists the chance to address their fans at the end of the match was unacceptable, and we have apologized directly to Victoria, Beatrice, Coco, and Jessica. We are working internally and with the WTA Women's Tennis Association to review our protocols and are committed to improving our process moving forward. We made a mistake, and this will not ever happen again." Organizers had initially said they would not comment on the matter when contacted by BBC Sport earlier this week. Pegula said the decision was disappointing and questioned what century everyone was living in, while Belarus' Azarenka said it was hard to explain to her young son Leo why she was not able to address him in a victory speech. The professional tennis players said the players had been denied the right to freedom of expression. The WTA, the governing body of the women's tour, has not commented. The incident brought more accusations of sexism at the clay court tournament after criticism over the ball girls' outfit and the difference in sizes of the birthday cakes presented to men's champions Carlos Alcaraz and women's champion Aryna Sabalenka. Basketball. NBA playoffs. Golden State Warriors hold off elimination with win over Los Angeles Lakers. Stephen Curry led with 27 points as the Golden State Warriors kept their hopes of reaching the Western Conference Finals alive with victory over the Los Angeles Lakers in San Francisco. The defending NBA champions won 121-106 to narrow their deficit in the best-of-7 semifinals to 3-2. Andrew Green added 25 points for the Warriors, with Draymond Green making 20. The Lakers, seeded 7th, have another opportunity to progress to the conference finals on Friday in LA. However, they could be without star center Anthony Davis after he was accidentally struck on the head by Golden State's Kevin Looney and immediately taken off court. LeBron James led the Lakers with 25 points and matched Davis with a team-high 9 rebounds against the Warriors, who were seeking a 20th successive playoff series win against Western competition. Elsewhere in the Eastern Conference semifinals, the New York Knicks also held off elimination with a 112-103 win over the Miami Heat at Madison Square Garden. Like Golden State, they trailed their series 3-2 as they beat to reach a first conference finals since 2000. Jalen Brunson led with a game-high 38 points, while he and Quentin Grimes became the first Knicks players since 1972 to play all 48 minutes of a playoff game. The Knicks led by 19 points in the third quarter, and while the Heat narrowed the gap to just too late in the fourth, Isaiah Hartenstein answered with a dunk, and his New York side held on. You've got to give them credit. That's a hard team to play, Brunson told TNT, but we just came out to fight. Game 6 is in Miami on Friday. Gab Ellison reporting from Undaunted, ABC Amba News.
Well, thank you so much, Gab Ellison, for that report. And with that sports report, we've come to the end of Undaunted tonight. But before we go, let's take a look at the major highlights.
In tonight's Undaunted, we brought to you the interim government's position as Dr. Samuel Ikome Sako seeks a redress of Amazonian welfare in a press release. An Amazonian drowned in the Wuri River in Douala as well. We brought to you Francophones continuing their xenophobic tendencies and elimination of Southern Cameroonians.
Tonight, we told you that Capo Daniel, the anti-Amazonian, acknowledges journalist Anyen Cho was killed by his group of assassins. Southern Cameroon situation report we also brought to you today. Man burned to death for attempting to rob bank in Boya local government area and in sports. Sheikh Jassim still keen to buy United even if they fail to qualify for the UCL. And that was it for tonight on Undaunted, bringing to the news on Church Stories. On behalf of my co-anchor, Starsmart, and the entire Undaunted crew, we say thank you for tuning in.
We'll leave you with ABC Amba TV images. Good night and God bless you.